Here's lace. Want me to have a lot of that?
Sure. I bought you like 5 rounds today. It's the coordination.
Sounds good. So I went to York around the watch today.
Oh?
Yeah. That doll's a rainbow on her face. Can't believe that Maury album, John. Did you flat by the long black call?
Yeah, I come by the next ring. I played that Privatium by the wrong front line today.
Oh, the raising man with an Ash Marine? Don't for me you agreed that Trajan.
No, Presentation is trap. I mean, why the Crest soldier for the Magdalene nation is further grat to my Joseph.
Joseph for the Magalon?
Magalon my shit. Found a porn this round for Mom's birthday sex pic. You porn along for that?
Shit, I have a car. What way?
Lur's Day, you porn along for that?
Yeah, sure. So I can sew that long black you want for the Rat Chad shoes and all, and yeah, Chad's a long way for the rainbow seasonal and all that kind of art. So we wrap the bird again. We wrap the gay crab frown. You want that? Spline for me, display the Joe drink all around the mass-portation town while I for mass the Pope for cream and you want for why I chose Farine and all? You want for why I bleed the whole chase Patrine? You wanna get for what?
Fucking asshole.
I'm gonna call it for shade.
Shut up.
Coming from a bilingual home, my family goes from Spanish to English very quickly and often. However, sometimes the switch from one language to another can take a brief second. The other day, my sister Maya had shared with me that she had taken a field trip to the Maryland Science Center in Baltimore. She had told me how her and her class saw the dinosaur exhibit in detail and stated what she saw. She used a variety of colors, textures, and measurements to describe the dinosaurs that she had seen that day. I told her to share her experience with our mother, however there appeared to be a small issue. Our mother's English is not the best and tends to be very choppy, while my sister Maya's Spanish is still in the works. So when my sister Maya wanted to start sharing what she had seen that day, she was lost for words. She had no idea where to begin. Maya kept stuttering and asking me how to say certain words in Spanish that she had only knew how to say in English. Since Maya could not share her experience in Spanish for herself, I had to do it for her. After about an hour, Maya had come downstairs with a drawing that she had made, showing everything that she had seen that day. Through the drawing, Maya was able to share with her mother what she had seen that day without using a verbal method of communication, and it worked even better. This led me to question the effectiveness of verbal communication, and is it essentially the best method for overall communication?
This lack of understanding and the inability to communicate effectively leads us to ask our central knowledge question.
To what extent should a universal method of communication be developed?
Along with our central knowledge questions, we will also explore other sub-knowledge issues, which include how do we as a society define communication, what defines language, and how would a universal method of communication be implemented?
Before seeking out an answer for our central knowledge question, we must first define relevant terms within it and establish the difference between communication and methods communication. Language is a method of communication, however, it itself is not communication. So, what is language? Language is defined as the method of human communication, either spoken or written, consisting of use of words in a structured or conventional way. So, that leaves us with what is communication?
German sociologist of the 20th and 21st century Nicholas Mann defines communication as the operation which reproduces social systems. It is a central last limit specific operation for the definition and the retention of society. A change of communicative possibilities by a new medium also changes society. Communication is a synthesis of three components: message, information, and understanding. Communication comes into being when it's understood that information is imparted. Lehman essentially argues that communication is the unity of information, message, and understanding. He believed that language should be a medium of communication and that there are two other mediums that can be used for communication: dispersal media, font printing, electronically media, respectively radio communication, and symbolically generalized communication media or success media, truth, love, estate, money, force, authorization, belief, art, core values.
However, German sociologist and philosopher Jürgen Habermas did not agree with Lehmann's definition of communication because he believed that the basis of communication should be metaphysically based. Habermas assumed that common language is given. He believed that natural language provides the mediation between nature and culture, while communication is rooted in community life. Common language is then considered as an integrated operation of social system. And although Habermas sets up a strong argument for what communication is, Lehman also focuses on the comprehension aspect of communication and believes that if there is no sense of understanding, then that is not true communication.
By using Lehman's definition of communication, we can attempt to seek a universal method of communication through the arts as a way of knowing. With Kat's sister, Maya used dispersal media as a way of communication with her mom. Maya had used a variety of colors ranging from warm, earthy tones to cool tones, created different textures to show that different types of dinosaur skins, and sizes to show how different dinosaurs could be from not only themselves but to their overall environment. Maya had used man-made items to express, share her thoughts rather than using language. This method of communicating through various artistic mediums has recently become extremely popular and can be identified as art therapy. Art therapy is a usage of art media, the creative process, and the resulting artwork. It is used to help clients express their feelings, reconcile emotional conflicts, foster self-awareness, manage behavior and addictions, develop social skills, improve reality orientation, reduce anxiety, and increase self-esteem. Art therapy allows for those individuals who find it difficult to communicate through a verbal language use the language of art.
However, using the arts is not always the best method of communication due to various limitations. Although art is a creative way to express your thoughts, some physical and mental disabilities do not allow certain individuals to communicate through the arts. Vision impairment and blindness affects roughly about 7 million individuals each year. These individuals are led to using other senses and verbal language rather than sight in order to communicate. Tommy Edison, blind since birth, describes color.
I guess one of the things you guys are the most curious about is color. How does it work for me? What is it? I don't know. So being blind since birth, I've never seen color. I don't have any concept of what it is. I mean, I've never seen anything. Right? There's this whole part of vocabulary, of language, that doesn't mean anything to me. Over the years, just people have tried to explain color to me, and I just don't understand it. I think the best way to show you is to try and explain to someone who's never heard before what the ocean sounds like, or what the birds sound like. And that's where color is for me. Because somebody who's never heard doesn't know what those things are, has no concept, none. And people will try and explain a sense with another sense. It's like the way this smells, maybe that's what a particular color, what? So you're going to tell me you're going to explain what color looks like by my nose? That doesn't make any bloody sense at all. So when somebody says something's red to me, I don't quite get it. I know that red is fire, or a stoplight is red. Or when someone says you're in the red, that means you're in some trouble, like financial trouble. Again, just stuff that I picked up from hearing about it, but I don't know what it looks like. Blue. Blue is the water is blue. Cold or ice is blue. The sky is blue. Now, how can the sky and ice be the same thing? That's weird to me, but what's that? Same color. Same color means two completely different things. I don't get it. I hear a lot about orange. Is an orange actually orange? The fruit? I know nothing rhymes with it. There's nothing that rhymes with orange, is there? Way to go, orange. Way to be involved in poetry and song. Black. What's black? Black is supposed to be all the colors all smushed together. And then white is the absence of color? So when I hear black and white, to me they're just opposites, right? Because one has everything and the other has none. And then there are things that don't have color. Like water. But it doesn't have color, but the ocean does. I don't get that. Color is hard. How do you sighted people keep them all straight?
Visual impairment is not the only impairment from allowing us to use art as a unit. Among the vast number of them, there is amusia. Amusia is a defect in the brain's ability to process music, also known as tone deafness.
Mrs. L was a young-looking 67-year-old woman. She was intelligent, but she didn't know what singing meant. And she didn't hear music like most of us do. In Oliver Sacks' book Musicophilia, Mrs. L described music to sound like pots and pans being thrown around the kitchen. She said that if she went to an opera, it all sounded like screaming. This condition isn't unique to Mrs. L. About 4% of the population is born with amusia. Amusia is a deficit in the brain's ability to process music. Sometimes it's called tone deafness, where people can't differentiate between pitches or distinguish musical notes. In others, amusia can present as beat deafness, the inability to move in time to a musical rhythm. In the worst cases of amusia, people can't recognize musical information at all. A recent study looked at why beat-deaf individuals are unable to keep a beat or tap along with music. If you'd like to try a bit of the experiment yourself, get ready to tap along. The participants, 2 beat-deaf individuals and a group of control participants, were asked to tap at their own rate to get an idea of their internal pulse. Go on. Next, they had to listen to a regular auditory beat and tap along with a metronome. Next, they had to tap to a perturbed auditory beat, one with unexpected changes. How did you do? Researchers found the beat-deaf participants didn't vary significantly from the control participants when they were tapping at their natural rates. But they performed significantly worse with the auditory beat and the perturbed beat. The process of perceiving the musical beat in their auditory cortex and translating it into motion was broken. We're not entirely certain about what's going on inside the brains of those who suffer from amusia. A number of regions are involved in musical processing. We do know that the ability to move along to a beat isn't unique to the human brain. Other species with vocal learning abilities are able to keep a beat. Think dolphins, seals, parrots, and even cockatoos like Snowball, the YouTube dancing sensation. Snowball was the star participant of a study where researchers played him the Backstreet Boys song Everybody at different tempos and left him alone in a room to do his thing. It turned out Snowball was baller at keeping a beat at higher tempos. He didn't respond when the beat was slower. And his head-bobbing moves didn't imitate any natural movements commonly made by his species of cockatoo in their environment. Snowball was, it appears, really dancing to the beat. And if cockatoos can follow a beat, it's certainly not out of the question that a small percentage of birds could suffer from amusia, like humans. There's even been cases where tone-deaf birds can't recognise a mating call, and it disrupts their social structure. Like Mrs. L, the pitch and musical notes just fly over their heads. And if you don't already, subscribe to Braincraft. I have a new episode out every Thursday.
Although using the arts as a method of communication work to understand between cat sister and mother, the arts cannot be used as a medium for universal communication due to the many disabilities that affect the senses, and which are critical when utilizing the arts. Whether it is visual impairment or hearing impairment, the arts is not a medium in which a universal method of communication can be implemented. So focusing back to our central knowledge question, seeking a universal method of communication through the arts would be extremely difficult due to the fact that the arts can be interpreted in a variety of ways and are not understood by everyone.
Along with being my sister's interpreter, I tend to also be their private math teacher. Ranging from algebra to simple addition and subtraction problems, I'm usually the one that helps out. It appears that no matter of what level of mathematics you are working with, it can all be simplified to basic concepts taught in primary school. Regardless of the level of difficulty, the basics of mathematics remains consistent. This raises the question, can mathematics be utilized as a universal method of communication? Marlo Level, an astrophysicist, supports the idea that mathematics is not interchangeable and remains consistent. He says, mathematics is somewhat special in the way that it has an incredible longevity. What was true once remains true forever. However, before mentioning the potential that mathematics has as a universal method of communication, we must first define it.
What is mathematics? Although mathematics can be defined as the abstract science of number, quantity, and space, there is greater meaning behind that. Philosopher Peter Singer, a bioethics professor at Princeton University, finds mathematical necessity to be an inconvenience. Singer does not support the logistic views of mathematics. Logism is one of the schools of thought in philosophy, in which it supports this idea of mathematics being an extension of logic, and therefore all or some of mathematics is reducible to logic.
Is mathematics about something? Some will say yes and some will say no. Those who say no can be identified as non-minimalists, who generally support this idea that mathematics is simply a language. Those who believe that mathematics is about something may be considered as Platonists, and which support the views of Platonism. Platonism is the philosophy of Plato, a Greek philosopher and mathematician. The Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy shares with us, Platonists do not deny that we have ideas of mathematical objects. What they deny is that our mathematical sentences are about these ideas. Plato believed that mathematics was another world of abstracta. However, his well-known and respected student, Greek philosopher and scientist Aristotle, thought differently. Aristotle believed that the properties of things are real in the things themselves.
Going back to nominalists and their belief in mathematics being simply nothing more than a language, this takes us back to the question, what defines language? Within human communication, there is the exchanging, sharing, and expressing of emotions. If mathematics can be considered as a language, can we express our emotion, a critical way of knowing, through numbers and equations? Can mathematicians one day come up with a theorem that shows us how to determine whether someone is feeling content, upset, melancholy, or frightened through a complex of series of addition and subtraction? Most likely not.
Along with determining a method to create a universal language, implementing it would also be very difficult and can be considered as unethical. Many indigenous groups, ranging from those inhabiting Africa, Asia, and Central and South America, to this day communicate with their native tongues and dialects. These indigenous groups hold on to their culture, beliefs, and identity through their tongues and dialects. And as life becomes more modernized, these dialects are becoming lost. Through this extinction of tongues and dialects, the history of hundreds of indigenous people are also becoming extinct. In order to implement a universal method of communication, these indigenous groups would have to be stripped from their native tongues and dialects in order to make a method like so truly universal. The current remains of these groups are their languages. and if forced to learn and obtain a universal language, the rich culture and history of these groups could become lost forever. So, if a universal method of communication were to ever be developed, it would not be ethical to implement it due to the potential loss of numerous cultures. It would be unethically unjust to proceed with such actions.